Hello everyone. In the last video we learned about functions and how to create a function and call a function. In this video we're going to learn more about them. Now let me show you how to create a function which accepts some arguments and has a return type. Now we all know how to create a function. Use the keyword func. I'll name my function add1. As I said, functions name should be descriptive of what they do. Now when I say add1, you get an idea that this function might add 1 to something. Now to write the parameters of this function. Parameters are written inside the parenthesis. So for that, firstly we'll write the variable name. Let me call my variable number. The next thing we do is we write the variable type separated by a space. Let me say the type is int. So this means that add1 will accept the type integer and store it inside my variable number. Now to mention a return type, we have to do it after the closing of parenthesis and before the opening of curly braces. So I'll just say return type is int. I could also give this a variable before writing int, but that is only done for documentation purposes so that the other coders will be able to understand what you've written. So it's not necessary and I'm not going to do it now. So this function basically accepts an integer and returns an integer. So let me just add 1 to our variable. Now I'll use the assignment operator. So I'll say number is equal to number plus 1, which means that the number variable is now equal to the value of the number variable whichever is passed in the function plus 1. So suppose if I pass number 6 to add 1, then I'll get 6 over here and then it will add 1 to it, and this number variable will have the value 7. Now whenever I specify a return type to a function, it is essential that the function should end with the return statement. So the last line of the function should be a return statement and the return should have the type mentioned above. We have integer type, so this function should return an integer. So we can return number, the variable, because it is type int, as we can see over here. I cannot return a string or a variable that stores string. It has to be a number, integer, or a variable that stores an integer, which is number. So now I'll call this function. To call this function, I'll simply say add1. Notice that I don't use a package dot something to call a function. Like if you want to print something, like let's say if I want to print something, I'll use the fmt dot println. This is because this println function is not inside this package. We first import the package fmt and then we use the function println. So now to call this function we need an argument which is an integer. So inside these parentheses I should specify an integer. Let me say 9. Now this function will return an integer, so I'll need a variable to store that integer. So I'll just call this variable user number. Now by default user number will be an integer, because the text editor knows that this function is going to return an integer, so this will be a variable that holds integer. Now I'll simply say print that user number. So what is happening over here is I creating a variable user number. I'm calling the function add1, passing the number 9. So 9 is passed inside this variable. So the number variable has the value 9. So it goes inside this function. Now the number variable has a new value which is 9, the original value plus 1, that is 10. So now the number has the value 10. Number is 10. Now when I return this number, I'm basically returning 10. So this function as a whole will return 10. So you can imagine that instead of add1 of 9, this is 10. So the user number variable will have the value 10, and when I print it out, I'll see that 10 is printed out. We'll simply save this and run. This was our expected result. We see 10 printed out. This will be all for this video. Thank you for watching.